Well, good afternoon, this is Hound Dog Steve wishing you a very happy Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving weekend in Canada, and it has been the most beautiful day to do your fall cleanup, shutdown, cottage shutdown, whatever it is you're doing. And because what I found is that once you get past Thanksgiving in Canada, certainly the weather can go in any direction. But up until now, the weather has been actually picture perfect. We've had some very warm days in September and October so far, and it looks like it's going to go on. So it's certainly not hot, but we're certainly looking at 12 to 14 degrees for highs during the daytime, and down to 3s and 5s overnight. And you know, I've seen snow by the time we get to the end of October before now, so enjoy it whilst it lasts. Anyway, this is a fall garden update, and we're going to take a little walk around the garden. And but first I've got to say thank you to Catherine Gagney up in Quebec there, who sent me some pumpkin seeds, and I actually didn't get around to planting them this year, but I will do next year. And I sent her off some Egyptian onions. So hopefully she received those, and yes, you can pop them into the ground right now. We're getting into that time of year when you can put your garlic in as well. I usually like to plant my garlic in the last week of October, first week of November, depending on the weather. And the reason I wait until that last minute when it is really cold, usually my fingers are pretty cramped when I finish planting. But if you plant them too early, if I put them in now, we have enough nice weather that they will start to sprout. And when they start to sprout and then go into dormancy, you know, they'll probably make it, but I would rather just have them go in the ground, take up a little bit of moisture, and then freeze and stay like that until springtime, and then you get that perfect dividing of the garlic. Yes, garlic, like all bulbs, has to go through a cooling period in the wintertime, or it will not divide. So if you, and that's why store-bought garlic doesn't work in the garden. You end up with one bulb that looks like an onion, and so yes, it has to be down below, I believe it is 35 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 6 weeks, or it will not divide. And I mean, it'll still be a garlic, but it won't be the classic garlic clove. Anyway, as you'll see, I've been doing some fall cleanup, and we'll take a little walk around and see what's been going on. Okie dokie, here we go. Yep, this is what we like to see. Wood's all stacked, dried, and ready to go. And yes, I will be putting on the wood stove this evening. It's going to go down to 2 degrees. One of the things I really like about wood heat is it just takes the dampness out of the house, and got to be careful. This time of year you can get a little too warm, but it's a nice cozy warm on a cool October evening. Yeah, the leaves have lost a lot of their colour, and they won't be long before they're coming down. And I'm hearing more and more about how you should just leave your leaves until the springtime. There are lots of little hiding spaces under those leaves for critters. And oh look, there's Mr. Chippy, looking for some food, no doubt. So as I say, I cleaned up this whole corner. I got my barrels turned over now, and yes, I know it looks a little grungy with car tires there, but yes, a little shout out to Vicky down in Kansas, and that's what I'm talking about when I say I wrapped my house with styrofoam. And so it's really not so much the insulation factor of the styrofoam, but it is a wind stopper. This is where my pipes and my drain run from the laundry room down the side of the house, and that wind, boy oh boy, that'll freeze pipes like nobody's business. And so I just stick that styrofoam there, prop it up with the tires, and it just stops that wind from getting underneath the edge of the house. And as I say, it's not very pretty, but boy oh boy, it does the job. This is an older house, 1926, and like many older houses, the insulation was not that great, and also they're not as well sealed against the weather. So that's what I do. A little bit of styrofoam. Works for me, and it's a cheap fix. Yes, I don't know whether you can see there, but 10 degrees centigrade or 50 degrees Fahrenheit is the outside temperature. And what a difference that screen door makes on the front of the greenhouse. Okay, so in the greenhouse everything is green. You can see the lettuce there is coming up nicely. This is romaine lettuce, and I still have lots of tomatoes, and you can see, look at that, still flowering. Still flowering. So there are lots of these sweet 100s. And the same with the beefsteaks. So I will keep on picking tomatoes as long as I can. I don't know if you can see that temperature. It is about 12 degrees in here, about 2 degrees above the temperature outside. But when I came in here this morning, it was 20 degrees in here when it was 10 degrees outside. There's still a ton of peppers in there. I don't know if you can see that. They're still growing and still flowering. Man, I'll tell you, I have had so many peppers off this plant, it's unbelievable. And you can see the basil is still growing in the back there. And now you can see by the door it got touched by the frost. We've had some good frost already. It's been down to -2 the other night, -2 centigrade, but not in the greenhouse. Here are the beans. It'll be interesting to see whether we do actually get some beans off these bean plants. And of course the grapevine, it's done for the year, no doubt about that. A few tomatoes ripening. But this is my winter crop of beets. And even if I don't get much of a root out of it, I will get some greens off these plants. And I don't know about you, but I just love beet greens. Strawberries are certainly enjoying it. And as you can see, I've got the bottom skirt around the greenhouse, so it really is nice and toasty warm, keeps the wind off. But you do have to water still, of course, because I do not have any rain. You can probably hear the rain's coming down. It's a little sun shower, so I have to make sure I water by hand. Now I got all these raspberries. There's even some flowers waiting to open on this raspberry here. Now whether they will ripen up or not, I do not know. We are going to have to see. And look at that beautiful rainbow. Wow, what a great Thanksgiving. Yes, now that we've had some rain, the clover is coming on. And now, I don't know if you remember, but these were my potato beds this year. And actually I dug up some potatoes last night for supper for Thanksgiving. Had some friends over. But the clover will put nitrogen back into the soil, but also those little roots, those little plants, will hold the soil in place so it doesn't get blown away over the winter period. Now this bed, I did the mustard treatment first, and then I planted clover, but I guess I still have a few mustard seeds coming up, because I've got some pretty healthy looking hot mustard there. But again, that clover will come up, that will hold all the soil in place, because you can lose quite a bit of soil just with that wind continually blowing across the top of these beds. And as you can see, my sunflower plants have now turned into bird feeders. And like I say, it's getting a little late in the afternoon now, but you come down here in the morning and oh boy, it is just full of birds. The morning glories got whacked by the frost. I just did my last mow. But yeah, I just leave all this in place over the winter time. It holds everything together, holds the soil together. And of course the clover you can just dig in the springtime. No problem at all. Wow, look at the seeds on those nettles. How prolific is that? But yeah, the Swiss chard has survived the frosts. I'm still eating that. Sage is still nice and healthy. Some mint. My second crop of dill coming up. And look at the cilantro. These are all frost-hardy plants, and they'll grow well into the fall. It won't be until November till it gets cold enough that it just kills off all of this stuff. Now I just turned over this bed with all the hot mustard in it. Got it prepped up for winter. And I had beets with Thanksgiving last night as well. A friend of mine, Vicky, was asking me about radishes that don't grow into radishes. And I don't know whether this is just because some of the seeds are not great. It could be a club root, but here is a turnip that has no turnip on the end, and why that is I've got no idea. It doesn't look that healthy, you know, considering I planted it in the springtime. Certainly not compared to that turnip down there. So it may just be seed quality. Yeah, still digging up carrots. Lots of carrots there. They'll go right on into the fall too. This is the great thing about these root vegetables. You can just leave them in the ground and they keep growing. You can even put straw around them. You can certainly do that with the kale. Look at that, healthy kale. And of course we should be eating a lot more greens, these dark leafy greens in the fall. Change of seasons. Just gives the kidneys a little bit of a boost there. Now this here is my one and only remaining Jersey cabbage. Now you're supposed to leave this in the ground and let it come back for a second year. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with that. All the others got at by either flea beetles or caterpillars. And of course the raspberries are looking just great. Had a great year from them. Had a great feed of raspberries. They're really settling in now. This is their third year in this bed, and I just keep throwing the old manure to her and spreading it around, and they keep giving me lots of raspberries. So we got quite a bit of work done in the garden this year. New raised beds built, a new rack for the peas to grow up. I have about 3 or 4 raised beds to build next year. Anyway, I'm certainly enjoying my greenhouse. It was well worth building, and I would recommend anyone to build some kind of hoop, even if you just put hoops over your beds here, just to give you that little extra protection, because we are going into, I believe, a food shock. I was reading something the other day, and it was about inflation prices, food inflation, and food went up 18% this year alone. And this is not counting in the disastrous year they've had in the Midwest of the US, which will put corn and soybean prices through the roof, wheat prices. So, do seriously think about planting a few veggies to supplement, because it's going to get expensive, folks. It's going to get real expensive. Now, I'm not quite sure what kind of winter we're going to have this year, but certainly out west in Manitoba and Alberta, there has been some heavy snowfalls already. One of 100 centimeters, which is about a little over 3 feet, and in Manitoba they just had 70 centimeters this last week, which is just about 3 feet. Now, it's not so much that the snow came early, because you are quite a bit further north in Alberta and Manitoba. However, it was the quantity of snow that came down. And it is interesting that when I was looking at a weather map, North America is basically divided by a diagonal line, which runs basically from Colorado to just above the Great Lakes in Canada. And if you are west of that, you are in brutally cold temperatures. and if you are east, you've been basking, as we have, in almost just early fall type weather. So who knows what is going to come next. And of course we've yet to feel the fallout of that volcano Shivelush that erupted in August 27th of this year, and sent ash up around about 22 kilometers into the atmosphere, and that is supposed to be passing over us this winter and filtering out some of the sunlight, and we get little enough sunlight as it is in the winter time. In fact, from November, I think, to April, the sun is so low in the sky it is not possible to create vitamin D in your own body. So all people in Canada should be supplementing with that vitamin. And just as a little aside, I take 10,000 units of vitamin D every single day, winter and summer. I have basically a Maltese background on my grandmother's side, and so there we go, got the dark eyebrows, so I don't tend to absorb sun as well as other people do. So anyways, I find 10,000 units a day keeps me nice and happy and cheery and upbeat all through the winter. So vitamin D, vitamin C, yes, I highly recommend those two vitamins. And so here we are, as I say, on Thanksgiving, and I am giving a lot of thanks for the harvest that I've had this year. Probably about 40 or 50 pounds of potatoes. I have about 10-15 pounds of onions, garlic. All the tomatoes I picked so far have gone into stews, or basically a stew or soup starter. You know, like I'll get the tomatoes, peppers and onions, fry those up and put them all in a big pot. Stir those all down, add a few herbs, and then you can go in either direction. They just go into the freezer, absolutely perfect for a cold winter's evening when you've been blowing snow, and you can just come in and warm one of those up, a couple of slices of toast, and there you go, you got yourself a full-blown meal. You can add different spices, you can add some chicken to it, you can add some hamburger, that kind of stuff. It's a real quick meal. So other than that, I am actually doing really well. I've had a great summer, and it looks like it's going to be a reasonable winter as well as far as getting things done. I got a bunch of work to do in the house, and as the greenhouse and garden work dies off, it gets flipped over to indoor work, and yes, should be a few more videos forthcoming. Lots of stuff going on. The Brexit exit is 31st of October. We also have our Canadian election, 21st of October. We'll know the results of that, and I think we're looking at minority territory. So yes, it's going to be an interesting fall and winter. Okay, well, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, wishing you a great Thanksgiving, a happy and safe Thanksgiving, and do take a moment to just say thank you for all the little things that are around us that we just take for granted. Okay, see you now. Bye.